Hey, Lucas and Preston from MadPullz Games showing off gameplay of DHG Battle. I'm playing Dirg in this situation. So this first turn, my main goal is just to generate some feats so I can pick up that fishing link.
Yeah, and I'm Preston. I'm playing Porter in this round. Uh, Early on here, I decide that I'm going to actually use my Invoke, which is a once per game ability. This one lets me draw 3 cards. I'm doing this because I whiffed on getting 3 feats this turn. So I really wanted to use this both blocks, and I whiffed one.
Yeah, and this actually dealt quite a bit of damage to me. So what I want to do in this next turn is, if at all possible, generate 3 feats and buy a defensive card so I can get 5 feats later in the game. So I managed to pull it off, and I pick up a life preserver.
Yeah, off to an early even start, really. At this point with my board, I'm trying to get a 1 feat here, because if in the early game, if you use your 3 feet, you're only going to have a hand that gives you 1 feat. So it'll either be 3 slash or 3 block at this point. And just like I thought, 3 slash, I was able to get the flimsy katana, which is a great early game damage attack.
So I'm shuffling up, I'm preparing for the next turn. In this next turn, if at all possible, I would probably like to pick up the slash 2, but if I only generate 1 feat, I'll probably pick up the Abyss's Lair, simply because that will allow me to go faster. But if I do manage to get even 5 feats, then I'll pick up the Dirg's finish. So I take the Abyss's Lair to try to slow down my opponent later, and I just keep my my rewards line cycling.
Yeah, Abyss's Lair is very hard to play around as a Porter player, because you're drawing so many cards, and because you have larger hand sizes at the end of your turn, you're more impacted by Abyss's Lair. So that's something, after seeing him take, I'm definitely worried about. So I have a pretty crappy turn here where I whiff, and basically end up deciding to put down 2 blocks to not bring in his Oozy Goozy, because I don't want to start his engine of getting cards in the monster discard.
So this turn here, I'm able to hit 5 feats and block for 4, which is really convenient. This will certainly help me further in the game, as I just took my most powerful attack. And this does not bode well for Preston, because he has not picked up his strongest attack. So he made a little oops there and put the Sci-Fly on the top when it's supposed to be on the bottom. But that won't actually cause any issues even in competitive play. It just, in constructed, it would ruin your personal advantage of knowing what your monster is, but...
Yeah, not necessarily a big deal. Really, the big deal for me here is seeing him take a Dirg's finish this early. It basically is going to set up his deck to be doing massive amounts of damage. So this turn, I saw that I drew into a Porter's Backstab. I'm taking that Porter's Sneak, and I've got a 5 feet turn of my own here with looks like 3 damage, 3 defense, and still 1 essence to go. So I can looks like I'm going to add a slash to that. So 4 damage, 3 defense. So I have 5 feats to use. My 5 feet cost attack is not on my buy line, so unfortunately I'm having to take a more of a defensive strategy here.
So this next turn, I know I'm going to run into that fishing link I bought in the first cycle. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a Dirg's Fury with that, because Dirg's Fury will allow me to better speed up my deck, because it'll allow me to remove cards, further boosting my engine. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm also going to use my invoke for the same reason, allowing me to get rid of my byline and put it in the monster discard, both improving the rate at which I'm traveling across my byline, but also boosting my cards with rage, which deal 1 more damage for every 5 cards in the monster discard pile.
Yeah, this was a big move here, getting that new rewards line, different options for him to gain. Definitely a big move. I really like the play here, just going defensively and getting the Porter Sneak 2. I'm going to get rid of that hot potato. And there's a lair on my rewards, so that's something I need to focus on.
Yeah, he really needs to focus on it because I'm about to play Abyss's Lair, I think, in this turn, which prevents him from discarding cards from his hand in between the game phases. It also prevents me from doing such, but Porter draws far more cards than Dirg, and Dirg has a habit of getting rid of cards, so it affects him far more than me.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dirg's starting card has him offer 2 cards, which is discarding cards from your hand. And that can be a useful tool combined with Abyss's Lair to continue to draw while your opponent doesn't have that advantage. So in this turn, I have a basic 2 feet turn. I get my Porter's Dagger and start hitting into Oozy Goozy.
Yeah, so he opened up on Oozy Goozy without dealing much damage to him, which is the best possible scenario for me. So I set aside a slash simply to get rid of those cards that don't really do anything, and to boost my Dirg's finish into doing 5 damage, which doesn't end up mattering because Stonesy limits the amount of damage to be done to 4 per turn. But maxing out on the amount of damage I'm doing to Stonesy is a very good thing, as it allows me to be able to kill him the next time I attack him.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a very powerful turn, and I'm going to fall behind quickly if I don't have a way to get rid of Oozy Goozy. Basically, as a Porter player, when you're going against Dirg, you have to be strategic about how quickly you take down Oozy Goozy. If Dirg gets 3 turns where they're able to get rid of slashes and blocks from their deck, they're going to optimize their engine and be a real problem to deal with.
Yeah, my main goal when I'm optimizing my engine when I'm playing Dirg is to get my deck down to 7 cards exactly. Now, there are ways to build that are different than this, and when you can still have a really well optimized engine. But later in the game, you'll see Abyss, and Abyss allows me to draw to 7 every turn instead of the normal 5. This allows me to draw my entire deck. If I'm drawing my entire deck in every turn, I know what I'm playing every turn, and I'll be very consistent.
Yeah, I had a really crappy turn here. No feats generated, just putting down the slashes to try to chip some at Oozy Goozy, because, like I said, I need to get him gone quickly, but unfortunately, 2 damage is not going to cut it.
So here I take a really good turn, generating 5 feats once again, and I choose to take a Dirg's Finish. I also get to heal my Oozy Goozy by 1 because of my Life Preserver, which normally would give me an extra feat, but the feat counter maxes out at 5.
Absolutely. So really, and later on we'll see what he does with this Dirg's Finish, but interesting taking the second Dirg's Finish here with how well his deck's coming together, because you can sometimes have too much of a good thing since it's a 2 essence card.
Yeah, so the main reason I took it is to improve the consistency of my deck, but thinking about it, it isn't very required. I could have taken nothing or another Life Preserver, because my deck's already very small at this point, so I didn't necessarily need it there.
So on this turn, I ended up with 2 no-no-nos, ultimately deciding to equip one to my leader and take a 2 feet turn here. Basically, I'm trying to play around this Abyss's Lair, and when I'm taking block 2, it allows me to put a block from my hand into the monster discard and thin out my hand a little more.
This turn was kind of crazy. I got rid of all of my hand through Oozy Goozy and Fishing Link naturally destroying itself and Dirg's Finish taking it and another card out. And then I played Dirg's Finish. And I think at this point I was doing around 6 damage with the Dirg's Finish.
Sounds about right. I think you had, I think this turn, if I remember correctly, you had 14 in the monster discard. So I'm in a decent amount of trouble here because his strongest attack is ramping up, and then Abyss's Lair is keeping me from cycling through my hand. So at some point, it would behoove me to take this Sci-Fly's Lair I have on my rewards line.
Yeah, so you had the option here to, instead of vanishing from the discard, or are you full? Instead of vanishing from the discard, you could have vanished from hand, right?
Yes, and probably should have done that looking back upon it. I've got a really solid turn here, so I'm going to have 5 feats and take the Porter's Meditation, which is an awesome card. Finally taking out this Oozy Goozy.
Which is really unfortunate for me. I would have liked to remove a few more of those useless cards from my deck, like the slashes and the blocks mostly, but you do what you gotta do, because you can't keep them alive forever.
Yeah, and you had him alive for a while. I think I took way too long, really.
Truthfully, that is the case. And this turn, I took a kind of okay turn, simply because I wanted to get rid of the slash in my hand with that Dirg's Fury I got. There was no way for me to generate feats, so I kind of just played what I had and got rid of a little something.
Yeah, and sometimes with Dirg, you take those turns where you take some poor turns early on in the game to ensure that your late game is consistent.
Yeah, and that's the real benefit of Dirg. He builds consistency throughout the game, whereas someone like Porter is much faster in the early game if you get lucky, if you get the right things. And right here, Preston took 2 layers, which is very unfortunate for me because that means the Abyss's Lair is going to disappear at some point soon.
Yeah, the thinking there was I wanted to heighten my chances of drawing into the Sci-Fly's Lair, so I wanted to make sure I got 2 of them. I'm looking at his rewards line, and I'm seeing that he has Oozy Goozy's Lair, so I'm aware that he's probably going to counter my lair as well, but we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, and that was my first thought as soon as he picked up both layers. Oh, I should pick up Oozy Goozy's Lair. Now, at this point, Abyss's Lair is going to start hurting me about as much as it's hurting him, honestly. Not quite this turn, but soon when I'm playing attacks that cost 2 essence, particularly my Dirg's Finish, I won't have a way to get cards out of my hand. So I pick up the Oozy Goozy's Lair in case he doesn't run into it quick enough.
Yeah, Oozy Goozy's Lair is absolutely incredible. What it does is it lets you put a card from your hand that has a feat cost into your monster discard, removing it from the game, and then you can draw a card. So with Dirg, this just gets his engine going, and it removes the not as valuable at that point in the game cards from your deck.
Yeah, particularly a big one that I want to get rid of typically is /2. Because while, yes, /2 is really good and a necessity in a Dirg deck, the reason it's there is mostly just to add cards to your monster discard pile and improve your slashes. Once you get to the point where you can actually remove them, then you thin out your deck even further.
Yeah. Here I'm taking a simple turn, taking that block 2 once again to thin out my hand a little bit and draw more cards because of Abyss's Lair being in play.
Yeah, and this is actually a really good play. When Abyss's Lair is out, there's plenty of extra ways to get rid of cards. So with Porter, you can try to do equipment, you can replace a card in your hand, like in the cases of Block 2, or while, yeah, it's not a card in Sealed, /2, which is typically a Dirg card, could be played in a constructed Porter deck.
Sure. Vanish is a great way to get a card out of your hand. But yeah, so see Lucas really start to apply some serious damage here with Dirg's finish, and then this is the play we were alluding to earlier, where he uses Oozy Goozy's Lair to get rid of a Dirg's finish in order to draw a card, making his deck more efficient and adding draw.
Technically, it makes the deck slightly less consistent right now for hitting Dirg's finish, but it brings me closer to the ultimate goal of having exclusively 7 cards in my deck. I think right here I have about 9. And then I take a Oozy Goozy's Lair in case he plays a Sci-Fly's Lair on top, or as fodder for Oozy Goozy's Lair.
Yeah, so my Sci-Fly comes out this turn, which I know with the lighting it's a little difficult to see, but I've been attaching several slashes to my leader Porter in hopes of using Surprise, which is on Porter's Meditation, my 5 feet cost attack. And what that does is lets me add those cards back to my hand. The basic strategy is to add them back to your hand while Sci-Fly is out, and then you can have a huge turn where you play several slash for free because Sci-Fly makes slash cost 0 essence.
And really, this is quite unfortunate for him, because if he pulled that off, he may have been able to swing the game slightly in his favor, because he'd not only hit into me, but he would hit into my oncoming monster very hard.
Yes, and much the same as we were talking about with Oozy Goozy earlier, you really want to get rid of the Abyss as quickly as possible because of the extra draw that it gives. Here I did something that kind of surprised Lucas. I put my Sci-Fly's Lair into the monster discard. I kind of conceded that he was going to keep a lair out and just decided to use it as draw.
And honestly, he could have done either way. Technically, this is more efficient for him because it allows him to use all of his energy this turn, because otherwise he'd have to spend an essence on getting rid of my lair. So I don't know if it was the correct play at the end of the day, but it is not a bad idea at all.
Yeah, looking back on it, I probably should have played the lair. I actually do have 1 essence left over this turn because of my slashes being free. But, hard to say.
All right, so my Abyss finally comes out, and this is really the moment I've been waiting for the whole game. Because Abyss as a Dirg player just means that your deck becomes almost twice as consistent, which is weird because it only makes you draw 2 cards. But it makes it to where every turn I'm likely to be hitting something, and right now I have around 9 or 8 cards in my deck.
Yeah, so Abyss makes your starting hand 7 instead of 5, and like Lucas was saying, it just makes you much more efficient in the late game with cards like Oozy Goozy's Lair, which he uses here, has the effect of the added efficiency plus draw. So he gets into that Dirg's finish to really start, or keep that damage going strong.
I mean, even more than that, it also helps me to power up my Dirg's finish. And while I don't think I get it going any further than it is right now, it is a possibility.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that you didn't really get into this game was Dirg's Mead. I thought you could have used one of those at some point, but it's hard to complain with how well your build's been running right now.
Yeah, I think that's really good for a lot of larger Dirg decks, especially if you can pick up multiple copies of it, because it gives you a really nice way to just say, oh, I'm going to both cycle my byline and power up my guy.
Yeah.
Now, in my case, I didn't want to take it because the same reason I got rid of that Dirg's finish I had in my deck. I want to have an incredibly small deck at this point.
Right.
Because this play I just pulled off is 10 damage. And that is an insane amount of damage to be pulling off consistently.
Yeah, and what I'm going through right here is he took out my Sci-Fly, so I only got one turn of Sci-Fly use, and basically if he hits me for 5 after that, he wins the game. So I'm doing everything that I can to stop him from winning the game at this point. So I have 7 defense. I know he's hitting for around 10 when he's optimized. So my hope is that I'm buying a turn here.
So this is the turn in which I get to the aforementioned 7 cards in my entire deck. And this makes it to where every turn, unless if he kills Abyss, I will be doing 10 damage to him or blocking.
Yeah, and looking back upon it, I definitely should have used my Sci-Fi's layers in a much better way, counterplay, because I wasn't ever able to get any layer control in this game. Lucas, from I want to say it was like turn 4 on, had a layer in play, and Dirg's layers definitely benefit Dirg more so than the other player, even though they both can get use.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think Porters do as well, particularly Sci-Fly's layer, because most Dirg decks, I feel, don't run that many permanent skills. Like, I picked up a few skills, but at this point in the game, all of them are in my monster discard pile.
Yeah, that's the whole thing is Dirg's skills go to the monster discard, as where Porter and Magnus's skills get played several times throughout the game. So any layers that work off of skills are much better for Porter or Magnus.
Yeah, so right here, there's really nothing Preston can do at this point, because I'm dealing 10 damage every turn. He doesn't have a way to take out my Abyss, and he kind of just can't do much of anything. He finally runs into his Meditation, which is the big attack he needed when he had Sci-Fly out, but because there's no Sci-Fly, the slashes he's stored don't serve any real purpose.
Yeah, and you can play it differently. If you aren't playing for the big Sci-Fly play, you can put other attacks you want to use there to get like a big 10 damage turn with Porter. But unfortunately, I think the aggression of Lucas with this Dirg build just left me with no real viable options.
And honestly, this game was still pretty close in my opinion. There was a few moments where I made major wins over Preston that caused me to get to this point right here. So here I kind of just style play a little, just to be a little cocky, I guess. I get rid of my Dirg's finish and finish him with just my starting cards.
All right, good game.
Good game.